How you doing, guys? This is Matthias Atva from Dreadnought, your Dreadnought PS4 replay guy. It's getting towards the end of January, so I thought it would be about time to do a Dreadnought game and channel update. Before we get started, I wanted to give a quick thanks to all my subscribers, viewers, and fans, both veterans and newbies to the channel alike. It's no secret that the gaming industry can be known for some pretty harsh toxicity, and now that politics is creeping into our little subculture, gaming has received a lot of bad press and opinions are extremely divided. What I find amazing about Dreadnought is that we have a really tight community, and while there is the occasional banter, you don't really see the toxicity level here that you see in most other games. To add the icing on this cake, or the sprinkles on the sundae, is that this sentiment is also reflected here on my channel, but it's even better. I always look forward to your feedback and conversations about the game as a whole, and even some of the non-Dreadnought related topics we discuss. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support and input. In addition to the outstanding subscribers and fans I play with and the rest of the great PS4 server community, I also appreciate and have much respect for the PS4 veterans in Nuclear Inferno's Dread Chat. What a great bunch of players to share the Dreadnought experience with. We have had a lot of fun each and every day, and I wanted to give a quick shout out to Nuclear Inferno and Reno92. These are two players that are both elite and skilled, but they never let things go to their head and always treat everyone they come across with courtesy and respect, win or lose. If you ever played a game with or against one of these two players, you know that they are awesome and help make the PS4 community the best around. Before I get to the latest news and trends of Dreadnought and the channel, you may have noticed that there are some really great veteran Vindicta clips in the background instead of my usual legendary Athos replays. Well, with the Legends Redefined patch, there was a fleet tier change, and I have a huge backlog of replays from the old veteran fleet mode, which was tier 3 and tier 4. Many of my best replays from this backlog happen to be Vindicta replays, so instead of releasing 5 or 6 old veteran mode Vinny replays over the next week, I thought I'd make a compilation video in the background of this update featuring some of my most epic attack runs. Although I still have a ton of old replays from over the last 2 months that are all pretty good, I want to stay current and show you my newer replays from after the Legends Redefined patch, and therefore keep you up to date on the current gameplay meta. So a lot has happened to Dreadnought in the last 4 months and with my channel. We saw the big Steam release and PS4 update by October, which not only brought Dreadnought to Steam and saw the PC population explode, it also saw a huge increase in the PS4 population, in part due to some awesome advertising. Then in November, we got a great double XP event, an explosion on Twitch, more exposure attention from the Dreadnought development team, and a bunch of new market items, ship skins, and features. In December, we received a highly anticipated and well-received balance and game stability patch, which streamlined and perfected gameplay and gave us even more items in the market. Last week, we got a patch that introduced the rupture mechanic, and we've seen the module mechanics in general get more streamlined and balanced, and we started seeing some changes to the Corvette class. Some balance issues from this patch did arise, but this has been largely addressed by a hotfix on Steam that we'll soon get on PS4. On top of all this, there are more stability and balance fixes already planned, and soon we will get even better changes to Corvettes, hopefully, and even more market items, more maps, and even competitive gameplay modes soon, and I think that's pretty amazing. While we sometimes forget gradual changes from day to day, if you look back at the last 4 months, a lot of things have actually happened to the game, and the vast majority of these changes have been very well received. As I've mentioned in other videos, the Dreadnought team is a small, independent operation not supported by the corporate giants that dominate the current gaming industry. And I'm not a Dreadnought partner yet, and sometimes I have been critical of some of the issues in Dreadnought and some of the choices that have been made by the devs, but overall I am happy to admit that the Dreadnought team works extremely hard to make us, the customers, happy. They never ignore us and always take in our feedback and try their best to implement changes to make the game better for everyone. Let me tell you, I've played a lot of games, and in most the support is lackluster at best. Issues of balance, stability, player exploitation, hacking, cheating, and new content are often overlooked and go unanswered for months and sometimes even longer. Balance in particular is a sore subject of mine, as I dislike having to change my personal preferences and play style to adapt to a corrupted meta. Many popular games are notorious for overcompensating for balance, often overreacting and punishing large portions of the player base and buffing other parts of the player base in wide swings. This often leads to a just deal with it attitude where the balance and gameplay experience dramatically shifts from one faction or class to the other every few months, sometimes every few weeks. I have yet to experience this aggravating situation in Dreadnought, and it remains one of the most balanced games I've played. The devs seem to update the game often with very subtle touches, might I add. Don't get me wrong, Dreadnought has had some issues, but overall the hard work, player responsiveness, and customer support really shows and makes a great game even better. So where are we at in the current state of the game? Well, it seems like the player base for PS4 is as strong as ever. The vast majority of the veteran PS4 players I know play every week, if not every day. A lot of the new players that I saw a few months ago are still playing, and many have progressed very far and are now playing at much higher levels. Before the fleet tier system change, the tier 3 and 4 veteran fleet mode was so populated that I could get a match almost instantaneously if I wanted to. Sometimes a match would queue as soon as I pressed the play button. The legendary queue used to always be a little longer, averaging about 5 to 8 minutes, up until a couple weeks ago. Then legendary queues got a little longer, between 8 and 15 minutes on average, and I think this was due to a couple of factors. First, legendary was only really played by the 100 or so elite PS4 players that had several tier 5 ships and were extremely competitive. Some of these players got a little bored of playing the same opponents over and over and decided to start playing more matches in veteran mode. Also, with the double XP event and news of the impending fleet tier system change, I believe many players spent more time in veteran mode to quickly level more ships in anticipation of the most recent patch. This reached its worst spot about a week or two ago, where there was on average a 15 to 20 minute wait for legendary mode, which is about where it was before the Steam update. Now I'm happy to report that after the fleet tier change, that the queue for legendary mode is between 3 and 5 minutes. It's really poppin', and we are seeing many new faces, and although legendary mode is still very challenging, it seems to not be as unforgiving and competitive as it once was. I've been in legendary matches back to back, playing 6 to 10 matches a night over 2 to 3 hours, and I think that's great. The 3 or 4 times I've queued veteran mode in the last week, just for snaps and giggles, the veteran queue wait times seem to be in the 3 to 5 minute range. So overall, I think this last patch really helped higher tier gameplay immensely without affecting lower tier play, and I know for a fact most veteran players are elated over the change. Even though there were some bugs and issues in the game because of the Legends Redefined patch, which there always are whenever a new patch is introduced, the Dreadnought team's response was almost instantaneous, and most of the issues are already being addressed in the recent Steam hotfix, which will soon arrive on PS4. This is an amazing response time. When Dreadnought first started, it took a couple months to address issues and effect real tangible change. Then with the Steam update, which had quite a few hiccups, it took the dev team about a month to iron out the changes and make the gameplay the best it ever was. Now with the latest Legends Redefined patch, the Dreadnought devs are addressing the issues in under a week. I think it was about 4 days. Quite often the devs fix major issues within a week from the start, even months ago. So although Dreadnought isn't perfect, I think it's safe to say customer attentiveness, customer service, development response, and pace of change is not only good, but seems to be getting better and even faster every month. That's unheard of in an industry sometimes known for taking advantage of the customer, ignoring the player and fan base, ignoring lore or ruining canon, or just giving up support and progress in a game after a year after release, which happens more often than you would think. And what I think really impresses me most about the Dreadnought development team is that they really seem to listen and respond, and they implement changes that we actually asked for. Too many games introduce new gameplay or storyline changes and concept that no one really asked for. Many game companies are now injecting bad commercial practices and toxic political messaging into their games as well. And increasingly, many games in the industry are just showing incredible disrespect for the fans, the game lore, story canon, and the gameplay experience in general. I don't see any of that in Dreadnought, and they seem pretty dedicated to deliver to the fans exactly what we want, even though it sometimes doesn't happen as fast as we'd like. But all things considered, they've been rolling new stuff out every month, and I think that deserves mentioning and praise. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of the progress in the Dreadnought game. All the PC players are now merged together in Steam. All the console players are merged into one PS4 server. Module effects and balance have been streamlined across all classes and ships. Corvettes, drain modules, and storm missiles got a bit of a nerf. Artillery, nukes, and tacticals got a bit of a buff. The game UI and experience got a big facelift that most people actually like, including the new quick play button feature, a new hangar, and there are more game modes with new maps on the way, new dynamic battle music, a new fleet tier system that drastically improved queue times, improvements in game stability that keeps getting better every month, tons of new ship skins, paint jobs, items, and customization in the market, and best of all, an increase in responsiveness and development. But this wouldn't be Direct Dreadnought if good old math didn't bring up some of the bad stuff too. Let's go over some of the issues I think really need to be addressed to make the game better. Let's start out with some of the older stuff that's still lingering. First of all, marketing. Dreadnought may be a great game, but no one outside of our community seems to know about it, and the major outlets don't mention us at all. This is a problem. If Dreadnought is going to live long enough to really hit its stride and not fade away, we need more players. It seems most players find this game by accident in the Steam browser or while browsing free games in the PlayStation Network store, and to be frank, that just isn't good enough. Dreadnought is a free-to-play game, and it's definitely not pay to win since you can only really spend money on cosmetic items. So if you're not selling hard copies of the game, don't use predatory practices like loot boxes and special items, which is bad by the way. The only way Dreadnought is going to make money and stay alive is to drastically increase its player base. Period. The second major concern I have, which I hear from many other players too, is that although the dev team is very responsive and works hard, there is a lack of brand new content. Now, I understand that until you get a large enough player base, you can't just add new tiers because that will ruin game queue times. I also can't think of a way to add more ships and classes other than hero ships and skins without throwing the gameplay balance into a complete disarray, or worse, do permanent damage that can't be fixed like that has happened to many other formerly great games. But we've been playing on the same 6 maps for quite some time now. While these maps are pretty awesome and well designed, Many of them are very similar, and it's led to some static gameplay. And I'm not just talking about day and night mode or more maps with a similar feel. It would be nice if we had maps that are more vertical than horizontal maybe, or maps with dangers or special effects like lightning storms or moving asteroids. Even though we don't want to introduce too many game modes because that might thin out the queues, it would be nice to have some variations on existing game modes. A third old concern I've heard from a lot of players is the comprehensive lack of lore and single player mode. Personally, I can take or leave single player mode, and many of my favorite games lacked single player mode altogether, but for many, single player mode would be a great opportunity to learn the ropes of the game while introducing an immersive experience and creating a sense of world building. If I were to make a story mode in Dreadnought, I'd actually make it a team play mode like Havoc and have it set during the Transhuman War. You know, experience all of the various major battles, introduce all of the major players of the solar system, and end it with the mass desertion and exodus of large portions of the PCF that would end up founding Sinley Bay. But aside from all this, the player base en masse jumped out of their seats and cheered when Dreadnought released that short 2-minute clip of story content surrounding the exodus from Uranus. I think that's a message that the vast majority of players are hungry for more lore, and that short 2-minute clip isn't going to cut it. As of now, all we have are those criminally short match load screen and ship descriptions, and I think that's just not good enough. Now let's move on to an issue that is much more recent, and that is the current state of the Corvette class. This is a very tricky subject, as Corvettes have a reputation for absolutely brutalizing new players and yet simultaneously being almost worthless in higher tier fights unless captained by the most elite players. When the game was first released, Corvettes used to be absolute terrors and suffered an early nerf that seemed to make the majority of the player base happy. However, there were still some complaints that Corvettes were too strong in lower tiers and too weak in higher ones. So the devs announced that Corvettes were going to get a class overhaul, and some of these suggested changes sounded like really good ideas to me. But with the Legends Redefined patch, there is now obvious exploits that have thrown the game out of balance. Most notable of these is the Corvette Dreadnought Strength Armor Amp that is making Corvettes almost impossible to kill, while they retain their deadly firepower too. While the devs are currently addressing this issue and promise to have a working solution soon, this has placed serious doubts on the proposed Corvette class changes that will be coming soon to the game, and I'm beginning to wonder if the devs should consider some of the momentum changes they have in store for vets. Now, some of the other module changes and module positions do seem like they would make sense, but some old module exploits like the infinite scramble mines remain currently unchecked, even though the devs have promised to look into this topic as well. So besides the upcoming Corvette changes, what do the Dreadnought team have planned for our future? Even though it's been promised for months now, we are supposed to get a new map, even though that might turn out to be too little too late. We are also promised to get a competitive or even clan mode in-game, with a new redesign for team elimination and custom match play modes, but again, we've been hearing about this since early November or before and still haven't seen anything tangible. There have also been rumors and image leaks of several new ship skins, although so far we have only seen 2 new ship skins in the market in the last 4 months. What about the Direct Dreadnought channel though? What's new with math? Well, I think we have come a long way on the channel. About 4 months ago I only had a dozen subscribers, my only views were from those longtime supporters, and I only posted Tier 4 Jupiter Arms Destroyer replays. But in the last 4 months the channel has really grown. I have many more subscribers than I ever thought I'd have for a channel dedicated solely to Dreadnought, and even though I greatly appreciate my subscribers, I get hundreds of views on most of my videos in as little as a week, or sometimes over 150 views in just a couple days. That means well over 100 viewers to my channels are regulars who do not yet subscribe, and I think that's amazing. Since the channel's humble beginnings, I have expanded my replay content to include all 15 ship classes from all 3 Dreadnought megacorporations, all a Tier 4 and most a Tier 5. But besides the meme-filled replay shenanigans, I've also expanded into tips and tactics videos, Dreadnought news and patch reviews, science fiction reviews, and of course my most popular videos, these monthly updates. I've also had a lot of requests for more commentary videos, which have received a surprisingly nice reception. Although I have many interests and opinions on a lot of different subjects, especially in the categories of science fiction, history, fantasy genres, and others, I owe it to my subscribers and fans to deliver Dreadnought-related content. I recently completed my Officer Briefing review series and continue to work on general Dreadnought gameplay tips videos, and I'm currently working on my Dreadnought Advanced Gameplay Tactics series. And of course, since I love playing Dreadnought, always expect regular Dreadnought replays on my channel, especially now as the player influx to Legendary mode have delivered some great replays that I'll be posting soon. However, my free time is limited and it takes more work than most people would expect to create YouTube content, especially since what I do with minimal resources on a very limited budget. Although in theory I should just go ahead and make whatever content I want, I really don't want to invest time in making videos if they are not what my subscribers want to watch. And I'd really feel bad, like I've betrayed my loyal viewer base, if I suddenly switch gears into another topic or trend to try to generate new subscribers. I always have had an interest in history and politics, as well as sci-fi and fantasy, and lately I've been on a nostalgia kick for movies, games, comics, cartoons, novels, and toys from the 80s and 90s era, the golden age of imagination, I guess. But ultimately, I need feedback from my subscribers and viewers to help guide my content and help me manage what free time I can dedicate to the channel. So feel free to leave comments and suggestions to let me know what you, the viewer, want to see. I will say this, I am nearing 100 subscribers to the channel, and when I reach the 100 subscriber goal, I'm thinking of doing something special like a live stream or a Q&A video or something of that nature, but again, that's up to you guys. So I think that about wraps up the Direct Dreadnought channel January update. It went a little longer than I wanted it to, but I think that's okay. I do make game and channel updates once a month, and I always have the latest news on Dreadnought events and updates. If you haven't watched them yet and want to get quickly brought up to speed on the latest patches and changes in Dreadnought, I'm going to link the most recent videos on the Legends Redefined patch that was released last week. Well, that's it from me for now, and I'll see you soon in Sinley Bay.